Hello guys, if you don't know me and if you don't know my channel, my name is Gabriela and this is your Brazilian spot. Guys, today I'm bringing a topic related to music, finally again. I wanted to bring this for so long, but I didn't. So I will tell you 8 different genres that were created in Brazil. They are Brazilian, and I will tell you a little bit about their history because I think it's nice. I'll tell you some curiosities, and obviously we have genres, but then we have some movements that were part of the genres. If you see, sometimes they're a mix of things, like maybe a song can be part of different genres or like movement. Also, some people they take some songs and they put, like, for example, sometimes it's a samba but they make a forró from it. So you will notice this because I have some playlists that I created on Spotify with Brazilian music, so I'll leave the link of this playlist at the description, because then you can check some Brazilian music, some suggestions from your Brazilian spot to you, okay? And the first genre is forró. It was founded on the 30s, but it became popular only on the 50s. This is because of a huge artist of forró, which is Luis Gonzaga, a very popular name. And he made a forró band composed by the instruments accordion, zabumba, and triangle. And this is the classic that you will see in any band, like these 3 instruments. And usually you have like actually 3 people playing in forró bands. That's very common, like when you go, not just like the famous band, but if you go to bars and things like that. Many people from the northeast of Brazil were coming to southeast, and this genre started to spreading around Brazil, this rhythm, new rhythm. So everything started in the northeast and it became popular slowly in the rest of the country. Sertanejo emerged in the late 20s, and it was born in an interesting way in the countryside of the country, with people basically eating and telling stories. And this is like how it was born, like people would sit to eat, drink, and tell stories. The viola, an instrument very used for sertanejo, came to Brazil with the Portuguese. Basically, when the first Portuguese came to Brazil, they brought this instrument. And even though this was more popular in the countryside of Brazil, today you can listen to sertanejo everywhere, basically. I know that I am from Minas Gerais, and here it was very common. Like when I was a kid, it was like the most listened thing, and still, like, of course, if you come here, you always have sertanejo, a sertanejo place. In Goiás is very common too. But I know that in a certain moment, maybe like 10 years ago, it started to be like a huge thing all over Brazil. If you go to Rio, if you go to Northeast, South, anyways, now it's huge. You have like very famous people, like they sell many tickets for their concerts. It's a bit crazy in Brazil, sertanejo. Brazilian funk. It appeared in Brazil in the 80s in Rio de Janeiro. Of course, by the name you can guess that had a huge influence from the Black American music. The DJ Marlboro, it was the responsible of introducing this electrical beat that you have. In fact, the video that I made in Rocinha, I put a background music that it is a sort of funk. I'll put here so you can listen. So basically that's the idea, that's the rhythm of the funk, and I really like it. And he started in an interesting way because he started talking about the reality of the life in favela and these sort of things, and that's why it's very popular in favelas. And it was not how exactly it started. Like, okay, the funk came to Brazil before, so people could listen in very rich areas of Rio de Janeiro and everything, but the Brazilian funk started in favela. So it started with these lyrics saying things about favela, but today it's also, you can still listen to funks like this, but it started talking about a lot of like explicit things that it changed a little bit over the years. And especially like, okay, started in Rio, and now we have other types of funk, if that makes sense. I don't understand so much about it, but like you can see the difference between a funk made in Rio and made in São Paulo. You know, I like the funk from Rio, funk from São Paulo I don't like so much. So there is a difference in the beat and the style. So today I guess we have some other movements inside of funk. Brazilian funk. And in the 2000s, it was when the funk actually emerged. Like we had many new different artists, and it was like a huge thing in Brazil. Like today we have so many funk singers in Brazil. But yes, you probably know that, for example, Anitta, she started in funk. MPB is the Brazilian popular music. Probably you heard about. It was very famous abroad too, and it emerged on the 60s. At this time was a military dictatorship in Brazil, so it was like, let's say that MPB and maybe Tropicalia was part of this genre. It was related to political situations of the country. So honestly, I really like this type of music. It's so good. I really love it. And you'll see that in the playlist that I created on Spotify, it's probably the playlist that I most have music. Let's say it was an artistic way to fight against the dictatorship that was happening at that time in the country. From the 65 to 69, it started having some festivals of MPB, and that was when exploded. Let's say we had like people, like new bands and new artists, and a lot of things happening around this new music style. We had artists like Elisete Cardoso, Elis Regina, and Chico Buarque. They're like big names of MPB in Brazil in this sort of festival, so you can imagine what I'm talking about. And as I said before, some movements came with this genre, like it's so movements inside of this genre. So for example, Bossa Nova, which is very popular abroad too, and Tropicalia, they are part of MPB. Samba. So Samba was emerged on the 20th century with the influence of African culture in Brazil. It was related to dance circles that were organized by the slaves in Brazil. So of course, when there was still slaves in Brazil. So a variant of this was Samba de Roda, and today we call it Roda de Samba, that was emerged in the state of Bahia, and later it was taken to Rio de Janeiro. This was already after the slavery in Brazil, so in the period after this, Roda de Samba started to be more popular, because then the ex-slaves, so these people that used to be slaves, they had their freedom in a certain way. I'm saying this because there was still some problems regarding their freedom. They were like free people, but the country still were showing a lot of racism against the people who used to be slaves, so people that came from Africa and everything. So let's say they would ban these people from doing their festivities, which is crazy. So like, okay, you're free, but you cannot do your festivals, like their festivities, and do whatever you want. So that's what I'm saying, that they were free. But as far as I did my research, they were not doing because of this. So they would still do their festivities even though it was not legal. After the 30s, little by little, this rhythm started to be more popular all over the country. Not just all over the country, but even abroad. Samba is something that people know, like when you talk about Brazil, people say samba. So yes, today is like, of course, part of carnival and these sort of things. And talking about carnival, axé. Axé is a type of music that appeared in Bahia on the 80s and appeared actually in carnival. So I think I said about a documentary. I'll put the name here on the screen somewhere. A documentary that talks about axé, type of music that is related to carnival, like straight related. It's kind of recent if you think, because it's from the 80s, and they say in the documentary a lot of things. It's very interesting to see how it happened. You know, we already had a lot of rhythms, and of course it's connected to samba. So it's a mix of frevo from Pernambuco, which is the state of Brazil, maracatu, reggae, and forró. So big names of this genre was Daniela Mercury, Ivete Sangalo, or other bands like Chiclete com Banana, Asa de Águia. Honestly, I really like this type of music, like, because I like carnival too. And we had a phase that we had so many micaretas. Micaretas were like a festival of Axé music. So you would have many artists that would play Axé, and it's like a carnival out of like, not on the carnival date, but it's a sort of a carnival. Like you have like 1 or 2 days of carnival party, let's say. Choro. Choro had the influence of Portuguese and African music, and it emerged in Rio de Janeiro on 19th century. So as you can see, a lot of things happened in Rio de Janeiro. That's why Rio is so important in Brazil and so amazing. Like everyone was there doing things there. So more specifically, in 1880, it became more popular in Rio de Janeiro. And until a certain point, it was only instrumental, but later, more specifically on the 20th century, it started to be singing, more agitated and like joyful. So I think it was something more slow before, and you know, it changed a little bit. But on 50s, the choro lost their space to bossa nova, which is like, we were saying that MPB emerged in on the 60s, but it already existed before. So bossa nova was a movement from MPB, as we said before. Finally, Pagode. Pagode was the name of the slaves party in the quarter, so like what we call senzala in Portuguese. The place that the slaves used to stay. They had their own parties, and Pagode was the name of these parties. Very interesting. But on the 70s in Rio de Janeiro, they gave this another meaning. So it was basically the meaning of being around friends, eating, drinking, and having a lot of all these things, and also singing samba. In Ramos, which is a suburb in Rio de Janeiro, it was the first neighborhood that the pagode emerged, and it was there where there were like a lot of what we call sambistas, people who sing samba. They would have space there to sing. They were anonymous, but they would sing. People would sing also with soccer players, so there would be reunited like soccer players and sambistas to sing on the weekends and drink a beer, and that was a thing that started around Ramos. But pagode itself, because I'm saying sambistas, right? But pagode itself only emerged when the singer, that it's a very important name, Betty Carvalho, she went to a block of Cacique de Ramos is the name, and she had this moment that she met a few different sambistas. It was a group of people that the name was Fundo de Quintal, and she really liked their music, so she basically started supporting these guys. And then of course later on it emerged even more, so she launched people like Zeca Pagodinho, which is a very important name too, or Jorge Aragão, among other people. And yes, that's it. I don't know if you ever heard about like this type of music. Tell me what you like, if you ever heard. If you haven't heard, now it's time to do it. I will leave in the description some playlists. Don't forget to go there, follow the playlist, and I'll be always updating. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's very important for the channel. But also, if you want to support the channel even more, you can go to buy me a coffee. I'll leave the link in the description to help the channel. I received the support this week, and I was so happy about it because it makes us want to do even more. Like it makes us believe that we are doing something nice here. You know, I'm not posting pranks here. I'm just like bringing some culture to you guys, talking about Brazil, whoever loves this country as well. So I see you in the next video, and ciao.